victory and the agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Penasini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold it!
Alrighty, let me bring in the big fella. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to, we'll call it an impromptu live stream, Craig, with a bit of demand for us to follow up on the round 21 result against the Brisbane Broncos, as well as look at that NRLW result against the Newcastle Knights. Unfortunately, a loss for the Parramatta Eels. But yeah, in the nature of being an impromptu stream, we're not expecting a huge turnout. So I do see Joel's already in chat. Thank you for coming in, mate. Much appreciated. But if you can't catch this one live, we will not judge you. This one will be available on YouTube to watch on second viewing, I suppose, or on delay, as well as on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, all those major platforms. I'm your host, John, also known as 4020. Joining me to have some secondary thoughts on that win and also break down the ladies is my good mate, Sixties. Big fella, been a very busy weekend. Had that fantastic turnout at Sterlo's on Friday night, and you're out there at Eric Tweedout today. Disappointing result for the girls, but how you doing? And we'll get into that game very shortly, but how are you doing, mate?
Mate, been a full weekend really of the football, which I'll be honest, I needed, and I've sort of tried to arrange my schedule so I could do all of that. John, firstly, thank you to anyone who is watching this live, because just so people get an idea, all the people that end up watching this or listening to this on delay, this is how quickly it came about. At the end of the game, I sent John a text message that said, "Did you want to do an instant reaction?"
Hey, so people have been asking for some more thoughts about the Brisbane game. Do you want to do something today? It's like, well, roughly what time?
Yeah, because I'd been getting those messages. Could we please go a little bit more in depth about the Brisbane game? So, yeah, I messaged John after the NRLW clash finished over at Granville, and then went to make my way out of the ground, ended up chatting to a few people on the way out, and didn't see John's reply, which was, what time do you want to go with this? So I've then driven home, rung him about 15 minutes ago and said, can we go in 15? So we haven't really
I was almost out the door to buy some stuff for dinner too, so you got me at a good time.
Yeah, we haven't put out any warning that we're going live. So we expect that. We're going live because if there's anyone that does want to watch it, they can, but we're really recording and getting this out as well, obviously part of our coverage of the NRLW, but also because of that demand for us to go a little bit more in depth into our takes on Friday night with the Eels' victory over the Broncos. John, as we speak as well, the girls in the Harvey Norman women's team are leading 16-6 at halftime against the Knights.
Knights just scored.
Did they?
Joey Morris getting her second of the game, so 16-12 is the live score as we record here.
Okay, so we should have a result for our listeners by the time we wrap up this podcast. Lots to talk about, as you said, John. Still buzzing after the live appearance in Paraleagues in Sterlo's, the home of the Eels, on Friday night. Great roll-up of people. Fabulous responses online that we've had. All the mentions, the messages. It's been, we couldn't be happier. Obviously, the Eels came through for us with the result. There's nothing like staging a watch party and then your team gets up, much to everyone's delight. So a few people that snuck out before the final siren that thought it was a try to the Broncos, my brother included, who were pleasantly surprised a bit later when they actually found out that we won.
Did you catch the comment from one of our readers, Joseph, in the live
went
reaction?
To bed, didn't he?
Yeah, he tossed the remote at the TV and turned it off in a fit of rage. Understandably, it wasn't unjustified. And then he caught our reaction block the next morning. He's like, wait, we won? It's a great story to tell all your mates there, Joseph. So certainly if you don't mind taking a little bit of a chuckle at yourself there, that is a very, very good story. And yeah, look, we're going to dive into our follow-up post-mortem of that fantastic result against the Brisbane Broncos. But before we do go any further, you mentioned that watch party, Craig. Part of that was brought on by our relationship, our partnership with the Parramatta Eels and the PLC there. They're doing a wonderful job. Rebecca, our liaison there, was on top of all things for us, and that partnership's been fantastic. So massive thank you to them as sponsors of the tip sheet. And, of course, our other sponsor, Star Partners Real Estate. Greg was out there celebrating it with us, mate. He was riding every bike, every big moment there. So was Michael Formosa, who's in chat. Good to catch up with Michael on the night. But Greg was there and had a great chat with him about the importance of Mitchell Moses in the post-game there. Greg was a very big believer that we're a top 6 team with Mitch fully fit this year. And I tell you what, it's kind of hard to formulate a case against that of how the team has grown without Mitchell Moses, mate. And we'll talk about that more. But for those that are catching this one live or in the post, you can give us a like and subscribe, that usual YouTube mumbo jumbo, as well as on Spotify and iTunes. You can give us reviews there too. So much thanks, mate. But let's get into it from this point. Let's start with the ladies, because that is the quote-unquote instant reaction portion of this podcast, mate. Eels went down to the Newcastle Knights 30-6, their first home game of the season at Eric Tweedale. Had Joel's in chat been talking about some of the issues the girls had in this game, and I think it was pretty on point. They were sort of playing within themselves a little bit too vanilla with some of their attacking structures. But the other part too is that they had opportunities, even playing within themselves in the second half, to put the Knights away. Down 12-6, they had them on the ropes with line breaks by Mahalia Murphy and Big LC Albert, and just couldn't capitalise on those chances, mate. And Newcastle, for whatever reason, and we talk about styles making fights, that old boxing adage that also stays true in rugby league. Newcastle seem to play a brand of football, regardless of whether they've got Tamika Upton or Millie Boyle in the helm, that really upsets the Parramatta Eels. And we go away from our physicality. Our first up contact was really inconsistent today. Some great hits, but then some terrible line speed and some really passive defense. And the Newcastle Knights took us to task. And the Eels, yeah, as Joel pointed out, very content to just play north-south and never really explore out wide to Rory Owen between the 20s, or Abby Church getting downhill either side of the field, and just fell victim to playing within Newcastle's tempo in this game, mate.
Yeah, it was a frustrating game to watch, John, because there were opportunities there which weren't taken. You mentioned about the passive defence. There's another thing I'm going to talk about too during this breakdown of the game, but that might be more across the board than just this one specific game. And when I say across the board, I mean maybe it's across the NRLW and to a large part the NRL as well. But I'll come to that shortly. John, watching the game today, it felt like the Knights were a metre faster than the Eels in so many aspects of the game. It was everything from the work that was happening from Southwell through to the way the edges were hitting the ball up. It was almost like one team had their timing down to a T in attack, and the other team was just constantly off the pace. Passes were going behind players, or they weren't thrown when they should be. It was just, it was just a really frustrating game to watch, and certainly one where you felt that we didn't take any advantage of some of the talent that's in the team. And then I was also wondering that whether there might have been a little bit of a reality check for the team as well, that there is a distance for them to go to be finalists this year. Because if I'm looking at the Knights, I'm not thinking that they're a premiership winner. And maybe, John, just maybe it's what you've said, that there are certain teams that are other teams' bogey team, and it feels like the Knights are certainly that for us. They play a brand of football which we don't seem to adjust very well to. Certainly the last two times we've played them, it feels like they've really given it to us.
Yeah,
a
I
big
think it's
time.
a 3-game winning streak for them head to head. Eels did win the inaugural clash against Newcastle. That's going back a few years now, and it just feels like we haven't really been in the contest against them. And today we were. The end score 30-6 isn't reflective of how close it was deep into that second half. I think prior to maybe the 55th minute where Gallagher took the score really away from the Eels. But they just, really inconsistent. Great game, poor game. Great game, poor game is how you describe it so far. Round 4 concluded now. They've got time.
John, can I just mention, you're talking about the type of game. This was a game which spoke to how you can't judge the statistics in a game. Like, they don't tell the full story, because when I look at the Eels in this game, this possession was split 50-50. The Eels' completion rate was 84% to their 83%. There was a big difference with offloads, 6-2.
Line breaks and offloads really standing out.
Line breaks and offloads were there. But then you look at the effective tackles, and the Eels were over 90%.
Yeah, the Eels broke more tackles,
under 90%,
which led to the split in tackle rate. So, you can't always – the tail of the tape doesn't always tell the full story. And what we saw today was –
more missed tackles by the Knights, more errors by the Knights, more penalties conceded by the Knights. And you go, well, where's it gone wrong? It went horribly wrong.
It shows you the importance of completing those opportunities, doesn't it? And it's something that
absolutely.
It's something that dogged the males, the boys, early this year. Their inability to take advantage of some of those opportunities, and we were talking about it as recently as last week against Canberra. Dylan Walker breaks through and can't find Junior Barlow or can't find Josh Papali on his inside. Those moments really add up very quickly, and we saw that today, as we mentioned, Mahalia Murphy and Elsie Alba with big runs that had Canberra. Get my teams cross over here. They had Newcastle all at sea, but then after the Mahalia Murphy break, we don't make good use of football, and then in Elsie's case, gets the ball knocked out of her hands as she tries to free the arm. Tess McWilliams nearly scores late in the game too, which I know the game was done by then, but would have helped, obviously, if we'd scored the other tries going into that one. Yeah, and Steve Georgialis, he's got a real task in his hands here, because the talent in the team is quite obvious, Craig. But being able to harness it consistently now, that's going to be the real challenge for these girls, because they have the ability to challenge and vie for the premiership, but not if they're going to be going week on, week off. Because as we all know, you've got to win, well, in the male space, 3 or 4 straight games, but for the girls, what is it, the format? Is it the top 6 this year?
Actually, you know what? I've never chased that up. I'm assuming that it's not a top 4 this year, because what have we got? 12 teams.
I believe it's 12 teams. So it's a 3-week top 6 NRLW final series. Which would mean the top 2 teams get a week off, right? Teams 1 and 2 in a top 6, and then teams
in a 3-week format, it'd have to be, surely. So
teams 1 and 2 week off, and then obviously the bottom 4 from there play out into the grand final qualifier against the 2 teams on the bye. So got to get going, mate. You're gonna have to win at least 2 games in a row, probably 3. And you can't afford to have these week-to-week inconsistencies, so that's going to be a real big challenge for them. Obviously missing some key forwards. I think still ironing out some issues. I saw in chat, Jessicide was pushing for Murphy to move into the front row or the middle rotation on account of her reluctance to pass to her outside. I don't think that's an unfair criticism. It's also a second game back, Craig. She had opportunities to offload in this game too, I think, but a lot of times her runs were sort of she wasn't getting great backup to down that left edge, but that's definitely something worth giving some consideration to if it's going to be an issue transitioning the ball to an edge support. But I would look at other areas before I start looking at moving Mahalia into a different position, mate. I feel like the week-to-week issues are far bigger than an individual player maybe not promoting the ball as much as she could have. But yeah, there was individual.
I was just going to say, I thought Mahalia was one of the better performers out there. And I thought one of the concerns for me was that our support play wasn't great.
No, it wasn't. It was pretty
weak. Because those opportunities were there to capitalise. And and I wondered, it just looked like on her long run that Elsie Albert threw the ball away in frustration. She was that desperate to try and get the ball to a support that she just lost all control.
My initial reaction was she was transitioning that ball into an offloading or passing capability, but then Hannah, Jessie, which southpaw was it? Whichever southpaw it was, got her just as the ball was being transitioned and couldn't quite regrip that ball. So
yeah.
Look, a lot of teaching tape out of this one, mate. Newcastle, I think, they're not like a premiership heavyweight. They're going to be thereabouts in the finals, but Eels just match up really poorly, and there's a lot to look at there because I think I don't know if it was you, Michael, or if it was someone else that was talking about some concerns. I know it was Hardly On, who was here for our last live stream, and he had concerns about line speed and a lack of consistent aggression in the defense for the girls, and that pretty clearly reared its head today, where they were far too passive against the Novocastrians, allowed them to get great post-contact meters, a lot of arm grabbing, in between some violent hits from Elsie Albert and Martha Matteoli and a couple others put on good hits, but you can't have that kind of volatility in defense. You want consistency, and the Eels were very weak in their first up contact on average.
Yeah, so do we put it down to being one of those games? You go 2 weeks ago and you can say that about the Warriors game. You don't want to be 2 weeks down the track and saying something similar. I think this game, and given that we haven't played a couple of the powerhouses yet, but I think this game maybe has to be a line in the sand game for that Steve Georgiala has with his Chargers. Yep. Like this just wasn't anywhere near good enough, and I think as well the eventual return of Kennedy Cherrington and Tyler Amiatu will make a difference because they are the sorts of middles that are going to cause problems. They're going to challenge the middle of opposing teams. They're going to both of them have got they're just really tough to bring down in their carries, and they will hurt the opposition in defence as well.
And I think you look at that interchange bench, and there's a couple of spots where you could pretty comfortably reintroduce them. Fleur Gin, very talented young player who's going to have a future for the Parramatta Eels, but right now sort of getting token minutes off the interchange. I think that's a pretty easy substitution there for whoever returns first in between Kennedy and Tyler Amiatu. And then
Rory Owen got a banged up knee today and was sitting on the sideline iced up, and Fleur Ginn come on for her during the game today. We'd hope that Rory isn't out for any period of time as a result of that injury. She didn't appear to be in too much pain because she was walking around after the game and just simply had ice taped to her knee. So I'd like to think it's not going to be too bad. And I think we're pretty close with Kennedy returning as well. So that'll be a boon for the Eels.
And look, we saw today Ruben Cherrington pushed out to lock forward when Tanika Tidehunter came onto the field. So if you're confident in Ruben's ability to play the full game in dual capacity, once Kennedy's back, I would argue that you could just play Ruben for the full game at dummy half. And then
I thought Ruben was close to best on field out there today.
9 carries, 114 metres, good impact.
Yeah.
Reasonably good service. The issues of attacking continuity going, beyond a couple passes wide the ruck, that's not on the dummy half, is it? That's a function of the halves maybe not getting on the same page as their edges, and certainly something to tidy up there with the Parramatta Eels. I thought Elsie Albert was great. Martha Mattielli looked pretty good here, Craig. Thankfully, got some clean takes under the high ball. That's been an issue for her in the first month or so, but had a couple of good contests under the high ball. Abby Church was solid, but again, just not as involved in attack as you want to see for someone that we know is talented and that much of an impact player for the Eels.
That's what I say, John. It was like the timing was just off. It was off across the park. It was, look, I saw this in the trial. I saw it in the first round, even though we won. It was there in the second week. Last week, high scoring was a bit better. This week, it's clunky. They're not quite on the same page. Their timing between the playmakers or whoever's passing the ball, to be honest, and the runner, it's just not quite synced up at the moment. In contrast, we saw the Knights. It was almost like the lines that were being run, the ball that was being thrown, more often than not, they're in the right spot. And they asked lots more questions than what the Eels did. Not that the Eels didn't ask questions, but I don't know. It was, to me, I don't know whether it was more individual efforts that asked the questions for the Eels rather than a team cohesion. Does that make sense to you in what you view, John? Because sometimes where you're there at the ground, you're seeing things in a slightly different perspective. Not always right. Maybe you get a feel for bit more of a feel of the flow of the game watching it actually at the venue. But then other times you're seeing more things on the TV than what you see live. By that I mean sometimes you might be critical of a player. You think they've done this wrong or that wrong, and then when you see it in replay, you realise, that didn't happen. Maybe it was someone else's fault with this or someone else's fault with that. But today, it was just the clunkiness, and I don't know. Maybe the Knights are a bogey team for the Eels. The other thing is too, John, I'm struggling to think of when we've played well at Eric Tweedale Stadium.
I was actually going to bring it up for a home venue. It hasn't been a happy hunting ground for the Parramatta Eels, and I actually can't think of a win.
No,
we got done up by the Newcastle Knights. We played them earlier, or prior to this season there last time. That was the game with no ambulance, right? No paramedics. Yeah. And they did us in then in a pretty similar scoreline.
I think they hit the 40 mark in that one?
They might have gotten to 40, yeah. They have not played well out of Eric Tweedale for whatever reason. It's not a bad venue. It's a fantastic little. You talk about the love that people have for Leichhardt. Eric Tweedale should be held up without the history, but it's a very similar, charming venue with more modern amenities considering its size. But I don't think they've played really well out of Eric Tweedale, and maybe there's a consideration then that they should maybe either burn the sage or look to transition all their home games to CommBank.
And maybe if you've got the one or two games that can't be played at CommBank, play it up at Kellyville.
Yeah,
because in terms of the capacity, Kellyville in its current iteration, and that's without, because we know that down the track, some of the buildings there will be moved. Talking about the temporary buildings, the modulars, and the hill will be extended all the way behind the goal line at the southern end, and I think it'll bring the venue to around about the 3,000 capacity. I'd say right at the moment it's at about 2,000, and that would be enough for games like today. And not only that, it's actually a pretty good venue in terms of the facilities that are there. Modern stand. You've got nice, comfortable seating. It's right on the ground itself. Good elevation, and they've got the facilities that you need at any ground. So maybe that is the way to go next year if there's games that they can't play at CommBank Stadium. So just something maybe to keep in mind there. John, anything more you want to add to this women's game, and maybe as well consider what you would do with your 3-2-1s in this game?
I think we've summed it up pretty succinctly. I'm not pressing the panic button, not by any means, but they do within the next 2 weeks really need to find consistency. Otherwise, they face the risk of just losing enough games to put them in a really precarious position in the charge to that top six in the final weeks. But no doubt in the talent. And I just feel like they need to have better maybe game plans, like in the plural, just have multiple ways to attack their opposition a little bit more with more conviction. And I always respect the strong north-south game, mate. I feel like being that or looking for that platform for the middle was one of the big keys to victory. But as brought up in chat by Joel and a couple others, a little bit bereft of options beyond that today. And we had impact going north and south. As I mentioned, there were some big holes, big inroads gained. And you look at the meterage from some of the girls here. Ruben Charrington, 100 metres, 114 metres. Elsie Albert, nearly 190 metres. Mahali Murphy, 141 metres. Tess McWilliams off the interchange, 115. They got good production, but didn't do much with it. So that's certainly going to be something I have to look at. If I had to go to a 3-2-1, I would say maybe Elsie 3, Ruben 2, and then the 1. Really liked what Tess did. Mahali Murphy I thought was very good too. Maybe I'll give it to Mahalia, and then honourable mention to Tess.
Yeah, it's going to sound strange, but I'm going to go with the forwards as well. I've already telegraphed this. I gave 3 points to Ruben, 2 points that I'm going to give to Elsie Albert, and 1 point to Mahalia Murphy. I think the big concern today was that we got caught around both the centres defensively, and whether that was an issue of communication, whether it was an issue where our centres just happened to struggle against the Knights centres, I don't know. But both Lindsay Tui and Rory Owen, I think they missed something like about 4 tackles each.
Yeah, it wasn't a great game defensively for either of the centre three quarters, no.
Yeah, and those missed tackles led directly to some tries.
They did.
And it was literally one-on-one defensive misses. And in contrast, the Knights, man, they just wouldn't let up defensively. Some of the try savers that they made today were phenomenal. There was a couple of times I thought Mahalia was certain to go over, and somehow they were able to hold her up. So I think there's a lot of work we need to be done on the training track this week, John.
Yep.
Let's at this stage put it down as one of those games, and hopefully the team bounce back next week. Okay, which now brings us to, have we got a score update, John?
We do, and it must be close to full time. Is it actually concluded? No, okay, they go 35 minutes in this grade. Eels still maintaining a 16-12 lead, about 63 minutes played. So plenty of time to have their hearts broken here at Eric Tweedale, but they're doing enough right now to hold on to that slender lead.
Well, let's keep the fingers crossed. I think I'd probably be, if I was still out there, and I did make that choice to come home because we got some rain out there, and I thought we need to get our instant reaction done. So, but I had considered doing a live blog, but it was just, I think it would have just kept me out there just a bit too long on this Sunday. John, we said, and we've promised different people that we would go a little bit more in depth with the NRL result from Friday night. We gave really, I guess it was more general responses to the game itself, rather than getting into some of the nitty-gritty of what actually went down during the game. But wasn't it interesting to hear the Eels start to get a bit of praise for how they've been playing recently?
Yeah,
this is from the media commentators, all the pundits starting to
a lot of neutrals too.
Yeah. So
I don't know if you caught the pregame today. Ricky Stewart was quite effusive of his praise for us too.
Really?
There was like a accusation. It was a question levied towards Ricky in the pregame about how have you been looking to address those in-game fades in your team like last week against Parramatta? And he's like, hang on a second. Like Parramatta have been playing some pretty good football. They knocked over Brisbane this week and they played pretty good without us, pretty good against us. It's like, wow, that's the nicest thing Ricky said about Parramatta in about a decade.
Is Ricky.
Even drawing blood from a stone there. So Jason Riles' efforts are not going unnoticed, mate. Like you said, neutrals, the media, fellow coaches pointing out that Parramatta are playing well above their position on the ladder, no doubt this week was benefited massively by the return of Mitchell Moses. He wasn't, I don't know if you can say it wasn't 100%. He didn't look completely confident in his ability to run or be just match fit, I suppose. It looked like he was blowing a little bit, which is understandable. He's been out for a bit. But, geez, just the confidence in the team just goes up several notches when Mitchell Moses has the 7 on his back. His ability, obviously, with the kicking game, just ridiculous. And it just felt like the rest of the team played at a much better tempo with him there. And just whether it's him just organising the field, passively being there, and the team knowing that their talismanic superstar is back, I don't know. But the Eels played really good football. Obviously had that potential heartbreak at the end. But, yeah, there are some areas we'll go into in depth. But it is good to see. I suppose it speaks to the brand of football they've been playing and the consistency in which they've been playing it, even with the lapses, even with the issues, because they are not the finished product. But they've been doing it for just about 3 months now, and it is starting to turn heads. People outside of our sphere, outside of the blue and gold, influence, the Parramatta Eels fandom, are really starting to say, well, Jason Riles, he says the right things and he's doing the right things. That's one thing that's really caught people's eyes or ears is Jason Riles' approach. A lot of people talking about how the way he talks and the way he sort of handles adversity or just difficulty resonates with them, even though they're not fans of the Parramatta Eels.
John, it's interesting because you had what you addressed before with Greg, our great sponsor Greg from Star Partners Real Estate, how he saw the Eels as a top 6 team this year with Mitch Moses. And I was reflecting on that because I thought what we've seen this year without Mitch Moses has been the embedding of the systems, the shapes that Jason Riles and the coaching team, and it's important that we mention that it is a coaching team as well there, with Nathan Brown, with Sam Moa, with Scott Wisemantle, having those heads, because there's been a real revamp in a lot of what the Eels have done. Defensively, there's been a revamp. You can see that there. You can see the way that the Eels' spine is working, that's been changed up. You can see the way that we ask questions with a lot of plays in attack.
I was thinking on that too. You watch Ted Lasso?
I haven't watched the last couple of seasons, but I have watched a fair bit of Ted Lasso, yeah.
It takes inspiration from a soccer football attacking philosophy that was done by the Dutch going back in the 70s. The concept was total football. It was positionless football, where you sort of have everyone being able to play defense, center field, attack, and sort of fluidly change positions. And it's not necessarily a one-to-one allegory for what the Parramatta Eels are doing, but you look at what's been asked of a lot of different players and the ability to promote the ball, play wider if you're a middle forward. You're often playing on the edges and getting different looks there. It almost feels like a rugby league style of total football, where there's a lot of difficult levers being pulled, a lot of heightened responsibilities for players that aren't necessarily playmakers. But it's being done to facilitate a really difficult to defend attacking style where the Eels can attack from different angles at different speeds with different looks. And that was just like something that's been percolating in my head because we've been talking about how far will the Eels go with this attacking philosophy and being so aggressive with their ball movement, and that sort of just tweaked something in my head where it's not quite positionless football in rugby league, but it's starting to explore the idea of how far can you take, putting a middle forward and getting him out wide, being able to use him as a fulcrum for, the other half going to the other side of the field and attacking, as we sometimes see. So Eels doing some really interesting high-level attacking concepts, and that's being without Mitchell Moses.
Yes, so what I was getting at there is that those systems, those structures, those shapes, they're being embedded without Mitch Moses. So we're seeing all the promise of what other players in the team are offering. Maybe we're seeing a vision of the future with a number of them. But when Mitch Moses then comes in, he adds the qualities that he has as an individual player to those systems, those shapes. It's so what you get is, okay, part of that, the philosophy that Riles has about taking chances when they are there. And you saw that early tackle kick that led to the try by Zach Lomax. Now, it may well be there that that might have been on the tip sheet for the Eels for this game, that when you see the players deep in field, we're inside the red zone, chip over the top for Zach Lomax, Mitch Moses steps up and lays it on a platter. Now, would one of the other boys, if Dean Hawkins is playing halfback, would he have laid it on a platter? Maybe. But what we're seeing when Mitch Moses is part of the team is that because he's got the sort of qualities that have him as being one of the highest paid players in the NRL, and a player who is arguably close to the best halfback in the game. He mightn't have the club premiership dominance of Nathan Cleary, but he's been able to step up arguably a bit better than Nathan Cleary in representative football. So he's in the conversation as being amongst the best halfbacks in the game at the moment. May well go down in Parramatta history as being at least the second best halfback to pull on the jersey for the Eels. He's added to that team, and you're going to get moments. You're going to get moments that he can produce individually where just that little bit of extra class gets something executed that maybe wasn't quite being executed, or maybe he sees something which the coach has asked them to look for in a game, but Mitch Moses being Mitch Moses, his vision sees it maybe a bit earlier than one of the other players might. Yep. And that's not a slight on other players. It's simply a statement of the fact that Mitch Moses is on big coin for a reason, is selected in representative football for a reason. He's going to be the bloke that you want getting as involved as he possibly can be in every game that he's a part of. So, and I think, again, coming back to that statement from Greg about the Eels being a top 6 team with Mitch Moses in it, it's maybe the great could be out of this season, because given he's only played 7 matches for us this year, and that there's been so many games where we haven't had him and we've performed admirably but haven't quite got the job done, you have to then think to yourself, how often could we have got the job done? And when people might point out at the start of well, look, there were some games he played at the start of the year and he wasn't really, not right at the start, but, like after he came back from the first injury that he had at the start of the year, did we win every game that he was involved in? No. But
the team's also a much different iteration of itself earlier in the season than it is right now.
Yes, correct. What Jason Riles was aiming for this team had not been reached at that point in the season. No. And we always knew it was going to be a work in progress, certainly throughout this season, maybe into next season as well. But fair to say, a few results might have gone the Eels' way, and it wouldn't have taken too many more results for the Eels to be sitting on the edge of finals football. Find 3 other wins this season, and then you are talking about a different case scenario. But anyway, there's no point in talking about that because the year has been what the year has been. It's just a matter of what will this mean going forward.
Yep, exactly.
Does it mean in a for example, this week moving ahead, and we won't dive too much into the preview type talk, but in a game that we've got coming up against the Storm, which is Thursday night, is it not, John, this week?
Thursday night, correct, yes.
That in the game that we've got coming up against the Storm, where the Storm are going to be without Jerome Hughes, and we know that someone like Wishart has been a good inclusion for them when he's filled in the halves. And who knows, maybe Pezzett.
Yeah, Pezzett's an option too there as well, for sure.
And we know that when it comes to the Storm, they're the epitome of embedded systems and structures.
Yeah.
They're absolutely it. Next player up comes in, fulfills his role in the blueprint of that team. And we're not quite at that stage yet, but you can see Jason Riles isn't trying to get us to play Melbourne football. He's trying to have a team which the type of football, let's call it para football, where para football is embedded. And it's the same sort of principle as any good team has, which certainly the Panthers have as well. Next man up, you just fit into the systems, get your job done, and it's the machine rolls on. So maybe what Jason Riles is looking to develop is a more exciting machine.
Yeah. I mean,
maybe he's looking at revolutionising aspects of rugby league.
But that is, look, people often talk about the machine-like metronomic consistency of the Melbourne Storm. They play surprisingly upbeat, aggressive football if you watch their games. But
yeah.
It's well beyond the scope of what people say, Melbourne Storm, wrestle, grind, et cetera, et cetera. They play pretty upbeat football, and it does feel like Jason Riles is looking to take that a notch above what Melbourne do. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be exciting. May not always be consistent as we look to, like you say, embed those systems and really grow them and iterate them and iron out all the kinks that come with trying to learn, as I put it, total football, rugby league style.
John, I always say to people, you cannot judge the type of football Melbourne play unless you see them live.
Yeah, exactly. The speed and tempo of their defense and offense does not get translated by the TV.
Not at all. There have been many times over the years, and the Eels have fared okay against the Storm. But when you watch the speed that they can play the game at, and there are times where I'm watching them, especially in say the opening 20 minutes, and I think to myself, how do you defend this?
Yeah.
How can you, it's just, and then what I'm thinking watching Parramatta play them when they're in that sort of mood is just hang in there. They can't play 80 minutes like that. They can't possibly play 80 minutes like that. Hang in there for the first 20, 30 minutes and it'll ease up. And probably it does have the moments where it eases up. The Panthers have been a team where they can go close to 80 minutes at playing Penrith football. That's why they've won 4 titles in a row. It's why they'll be challenging for 5 titles in a row. It's maybe they've had a level of fitness which has been above every other team. I don't know, but they've had something certainly in the water that's allowed them to do what they've done. By the way, John, Mitch put up a tweet the other day, which I thought was interesting because it went something like this. This 2025 Panthers team is a very, very good team. Now add, and he rattled off all the players that have left the Panthers in the last 3 years, and he said, that's your 2022 Panthers team that beat the Eels in the grand final. And I thought, that does say a lot, that this is a team right now that people are worried about. Imagine if they'd been able to keep that team together since 2022. I guess that's what the salary cap does. It prevents teams from going on runs like the St. George Dragons did during the 1950s and 1960s, where they won 11 titles in a row. The fact that the Panthers can get to 4 and possibly 5, and who knows, does say plenty about the type of team they were able to assemble in these years and the type of football they've been able to play. I hate them.
Got to begrudgingly respect them, though.
But you have to just go, man, this has been... I've watched a team which is a generational team. You can look back and go, I only have very, very dim memories of that St George team in the 60s because I was very young.
Very young, yeah.
But I remember quite vividly the Roosters teams with the back-to-back premierships. Obviously, the Eels teams of the 80s, which was a pure joy to watch. The Dogs, know a bit about them in the 80s. They were just hard-nosed mongrels.
And look,
that
Penrith had done it in the salary cap era. That makes it that much more impressive. Perhaps the 6 again rule changes favoured their particular brand of talent. Just by fortuitous alignment, that's what it takes, right? They didn't have any influencing factor on it. That was a PVL brainchild, but you got to tip your hat. Winning one is hard enough. Winning 4 in a row and being to a fifth, that's another part that gets slept on, is that they were in a fifth grand final at the start of it all, and didn't let it get to them. That loss to Melbourne. And Parramatta have barring that one game, done a great job against them. They could have beaten them in the 2020 finals. It was 21.
Yeah.
21 no, 2020 was it? I'm getting.
I think it was 20.
Because 21 was the lost the Souths with the Michael Jennings situation, I believe, right?
Unless we got it the wrong way around.
Yeah,
but we know. Yeah. Look, that finals debacle against Penrith, with Mitch Moses being dragged out when he was running in support, with the trainer coming on as well, and getting play stopped when the Eels were just surging right over the top of the Panthers. Panthers go on to win the premiership. The Eels get knocked out there. That was a sudden death finals game. That should have been Penrith ended in that year.
Yeah.
Bang, you're gone. Instead, calls go their way. Calls went their way the other night too. They don't need those calls to go their way. Did Tunga ground that ball, by the way? Did you see that with the kick chase?
Probably not. And if that was, you mentioned to me, if he was wearing blue, and gold, would that have been given a try?
No, it wasn't. Not. Did you see him laughing after the try was awarded?
Yeah, well,
did you see the players laughing with him?
Xavier Savage had that same response to a try he got given against Parramatta earlier this year, the penalty try up in Darwin. I mean, it was. He couldn't believe that he was given a penalty try for the contest for the ball in that corner, in the right corner. So it's just a Parramatta things.
Look, we've seen some diabolical calls, not just with Parramatta. I mean, we've copped more than our fair share. What about the call the other day? The kick. It was in the South Cronulla game. The kick was drilled into the bloke's head, and it was called. I
had to go back and check this one because I was watching the F1 sprint at the time, and I was like, oh, not seeing the Belinda Sharp special, but you mentioned it to me. It's just, I don't know, mate. I don't know. I don't want to talk too much more about referees, but goodness, they give you so much ammunition, and it's yeah. Very.
We are having a bit of a Sunday ramble, when all said and done.
And we do have some questions in chat about recruitment, because there's been a few things pointed out by Michael Chamis and Adrian Prochenko that we need to cover, Craig. But people in chat been queuing up those questions. But in terms of the game against Brisbane, though, final takeaways, 22-20 win. Obviously, we've been giving Mitchell Moses a very big glazing here, as the young kids are wont to say these days. But glazing. When you want to heap praise on someone, you're giving them the glaze. Good old glazed ham. But elsewhere we saw Sean Russell, fantastic individual try for that chip and chase off the Mitchell Moses bomb that was allowed to bounce, double for Zach Lomax. Josh Papali outside that last minute gaff was really good, playing both as a fullback and a frontline playmaker in certain spots. A player that Jason Riles praised in a column today, a player that we've been praising in the last 2 weeks, who's been a bit of a subject of ire prior, Jermaine Hopgood. Really solid in the front row, Craig. Really solid. It streamlined his responsibilities. He's sort of reading the game better. I don't know what changes between going from lock to prop in this situation, but he's playing better football.
I think I had him meant. If I didn't give him a point in the 3-2-1s on Friday night, I certainly was talking about him, John, because as you're saying, it's almost like you can see that he's adjusted his game in much the same way as I think Charlie Guymer's adjusted his game this year.
Charlie really starting to hit his stride now. Had that slow start to the year, got put back into Reggie's, not as anything near a death knell in his career. Obviously, he was just sent back for load management and a chance to develop his game.
It wasn't dropped.
No, like
in that regard.
You had a terrible game. Go back to Reggie's, and you have to do it the hard way. It's go back to Reggie's. We're going to build you up. We're going to support you. We're going to put you in a position to succeed the next time you come into first grade. And he was probably brought in even earlier ahead of schedule than what you would have thought because of injuries and suspensions in the edge positions for the Parramatta Eels. Kelma Tuolangi and Gideon Katonga being sidelined for, I suppose, indiscretion on the field and then injury respectively. And he's done a really good job. So well done to Charlie. Being in defense too, mate. He's been an axe, hasn't he? Just cutting down.
That's the part where he's really, I think, risen as being that defense, because there's times, like you said, he's an axe. He's chopping them down. It's his technique
and a few little bows to his attacking repertoire too. Some nice ball playing against Canberra. Also had a great kick chase through off the Dean Hawkins kick against the Raiders, and he's not ever going to be a dynamic attacking threat on the edge, but a rugged and productive edge back rower. That's certainly within his capabilities, and he's starting to blossom into a well-balanced back row prospect that can cover edge and middle, which is always a good thing. And then, just going from there, Dylan Walker didn't have to overplay his hand this week. I say that's like intimating that he does overplay his hand. I feel like because the rest of the team is lifting, he's not having to force himself to try and generate big play after big play, and it's allowing him to just play bigger minutes and stay in a sort of better condition for the team across the course of the contest. And then the interchange, Talon Da Silva still integrating to the team but looking sharp. Luca Moretti still needs to get some more minutes under his belt after the return from injury, but good signs there. And Matt Dury and Sam Tuavaiti having really solid games off the interchange. And Sam getting points from young Fletch in the 3-2-1 in the post game. The syndesmosis injury obviously was frustrating for Sam. In a way, it probably helped him avoid crashing into that wall that rookies often hit because it kept him fresh. But he has a great chance to finish off this season with a bang and really consolidate himself into a position of power heading into 2026. So a lot of really good things to see out of this one, boys. We didn't get a chance to do a 3-2-1 in terms of live chat. So I don't know what you guys think in chat, but who are your standouts in this 2-point win against the Broncos? Because there's a lot of different ways you can spend your points this week. Mitchell Moses. I didn't give him points because I'm holding Mitch to an unfair standard, Craig. I'm quite upfront about that. For a guy to come back in after missing another couple of months and just pull the strings the way he did against the Broncos, the only thing he really did wrong was that grubber kick where it got trapped by Ezra Mam and he got stepped on and it was like, oh my goodness, has he hurt his foot again? No, he was okay.
And maybe defensively he got caught out a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he only made 8 tackles but missed 6, which is not a great tackle efficiency by any stretch of the imagination.
As you, and again, we didn't have the luxury of sharing this with you guys in live chat, but Craig in his pre-game show at Stirways did make a painful point to highlight that the Broncos are some of the best tackle busters in the game, and they've got a great ability to break the line and bust tackles. So they certainly showcased that with their back rowers and their centres. Heverington had obviously a barnstorming try. Katoni Staggs cut up the right edge, and it was a great tackle from Joash in that case. Bit of redemption for him after missing Kobe Heverington earlier. 3-2-1s. What do we got in chat here? Jamie's in first with the officials, or official 3-2-1. He says Moses 3, Lomax 2, Rusty 1. Yep. Chris says that Moses makes a difference. Yeah. The appreciation of his absence, or the absences, really highlighted how good he is, not just the Parramatta Eels, but there are so many neutrals now, Craig, that when they comment on a Parramatta game online, not necessarily on TCT, but in other forums and other platforms, talk about the value that Mitchell Moses adds to the Parramatta Eels. And the Rugby League doesn't do the MVP, the American-style most valuable player, but if you're talking about an most valuable player in the competition, Moses is starting to enter perhaps rarefied air, stratosphere, oh my goodness, of his own, insofar as I can't really think of another player. There are other fantastic players that add tremendous value to their team, but is there another singular player that adds as much as Mitchell Moses does to the Parramatta Eels?
It's interesting. I could argue that for all the problems that he causes, that Reece Walsh adds that almost that much value to the Broncos, because they started on their run when he returned from injury. And even though he made a couple of errors that contributed to their loss against us, I would argue that he turns the Broncos from being quite an average team into a threatening team at their best. And I say at their best. I think we're talking. Are we talking then about players who have to be relied on for their individuality, but in teams? It's hard to judge, because I'm thinking of, do players like Hughes and Munster make that big a difference to the Storm? And then because their systems are so good, they seem to be able to get those wins even without them, much the same as the Panthers without Cleary. And you'd say that for someone at premiership level football, Cleary is that dominant, and yet he's not an essential. He hasn't been a core essential ingredient for on a week-to-week basis for the Panthers. Maybe they wouldn't have won those grand finals without him, but they certainly would have been a team that's up near the top of the table without him, because they've had so many years where he's been missing for a chunk of the season with one injury or another. It's just that he always comes good for later in the year. He's just never missed the big games. So, but Mitch Moses is definitely there, John. So, have you had any change of mind about your 3-2-1s, John?
No, I'm pretty happy with what I gave out on the night, which I think I gave 3 points. God, now I have to do a double take. Who'd they give my 3 points to?
I think I gave mine to. Did I give mine to Junior?
I think you gave yours to Junior, yeah.
And maybe Moses is 2 points, and
I think I gave mine to Joash as a symbolic token of.
Yes, you did. You did.
I had him tipped for potential best on field in the pregame, and I didn't want the trauma of that final minute gaff to overwrite what I thought was a very good game beyond that. But yeah, there were plenty of worthy points considerations. Zach, I gave Will Penasini 1.2, and I think Sean Russell 2. But Zach Lomax 2 tries, really solid effort in the wing. He could have been up there for points. We had obviously Jermaine Hopgood, very good in the front row. Jack Williams and Dylan Walker in the back row, rock solid. Fletch gave Sam Tuivasa some points off the interchange. Plenty of different ways you could have gone here. It's I mean, you don't knock off Brisbane like that in those sort of circumstances about getting great production across the park, and that's what the Eels did, and really good result. The deserved culmination of a lot of hard work in the preceding weeks, where they've been so good, but then had lapses here and there. As we said in the live instant reaction at Sturlo's, they saw the job through on Friday night, and it took an offside call from the bunker to help them get there, but they were in a position to win that game if Josh had just dived on the ball cleanly in the initial sequence of play. Yeah. But, as we mentioned, as our good mate Jeff came up to me and said that Joash gets all the lessons of that particularly painful teaching point without the actual trauma of costing the Eels the game. So a great teaching moment there for young Joash, a great teaching moment for all young prospective fullbacks about situational football and understanding when you need to just dive on the ball and not play aggressive on the kick return. So he'll be much better for that.
Quick anecdote, John, because we've had quite a bit of praise for Sean Russell go back to whether it was 21 or 20 or 21. Anyway, it was when Joey Johns was doing his coaching up at the Eels, the specialist coaching. And it was during COVID. And he would take the spine players and do some specialist coaching with them. And he also was working with some of the younger players coming up, and he just worked with them on one of the other ovals, or and then when he's working with the senior squad, he'd be working with them with certain plays that they were working on, or he'd just do some skills work with them, whatever the case may be. Anyway, one particular afternoon, he was working with some of the younger players, and anyway, we just happened to be, myself and Jeff just happened to be walking down with Joey as after he'd finished on, I think, coaching up on one of the on that top oval that's on its own. And I said to him, how the young one's going? And he said to me, yeah, going pretty good. And then he goes, what's the name of the last name of the young bloke, Sean, that I'm working with at the moment? I said, oh, Sean Russell. And he goes, yeah, he's got some talent. It can play. And I remember thinking about that he's, out of the ones that were there that he was working with,
Sean was one that made the big impression.
He was one that made an impression with Joey. So people haven't seen some of the things. Like Sean looked like he was going to be maybe a fullback coming through. And then we saw him get his opportunity in first grade on the wing, and he was then probably developed as a winger after that. He's playing in the centres this year, which I guess it speaks to, first of all, what the Eels' injury situation has been, that he's been asked to play another position in first grade again, but also speaks a bit to Sean's versatility. And we're starting to see him show some of his skill set and talent that he's always had, but maybe he just hasn't been in a situation where he could demonstrate it. I also want to give a shout out to Scott Wisemantle, one of the Eels' assistant coaches, because he spent a lot of time with Sean this year as well, working on different aspects of his game. And I think we're starting to see the benefit of the investment in Sean Russell. I still don't think he gets the accolades from supporters that he probably deserves. But it was good to see him have that big moment in the game against the Broncos, John.
Yes, and as we were joking to on the night, hopefully the Wallaby selectors weren't looking because they'd be all over that ability to get the chip and chase out like that from the base of the ruck and get through. But yeah, great moment for Sean Russell. He's having a really good year. And I think he's not going to win over some of his critics, because that's just how football works, right? If you don't like a player, you're not going to like a player. It's just, that's how it is. But I think he's winning over a lot of his critics. And the fact that he is one selection over Barry Simon this week, and it was a justified decision by Jason Riles, I think speaks volumes of the work that he's doing and what the coaching staff are enjoying about the work that he is doing. So really well done from Rusty there. He was a 2-point vote getter for me. And yeah, hopefully he can continue to have a fantastic year in the remainder of the, 5 games we've got left now? What is it, round 21? Be 5 or 6 games left, thereabouts. So on that note, I think we'll wrap up our secondary thoughts on the round 21 win over the Brisbane Broncos. As I mentioned, Craig, a few questions about recruitment have been sent to us tonight or today. Not tonight, it's 4:30. So we've had some clarity from a couple of journos, and Adrian Prashenko will say less clarity because this is completely tertiary information from a comment on TCT. But from Michael Chamis in chat, we've had multiple people reporting that the Eels were offered Adam Dwahi and said no. And there was also some talk about Dane Gagai being a potential recruitment target for next year. I don't know where he would fit into the picture for the back line. You'd think he wouldn't be a first choice player necessarily, but brings a world of experience in the ability to play primarily centre, but also a bit of wing and fullback too if you need him to. Is that right, Chad? Is that the two pieces of Chamis news? So the Eels were offered Adam Dwyer but said no, and something about Dane Gagai being a potential recruitment target for next year.
Yeah, and you'd suggest Adam Dwyer. Look, solid player, John. Versatile in terms of the positions he could play. I think he's got a dollar target that maybe the Eels didn't want to pay, and that might have been the key to that as well.
I imagine that would be a big part of the potential saying no to.
Yeah. And in terms of Gagai, right at the end of his career, still playing well, but he's right at the end of his career.
He is not a spring chicken. I mean, he's still playing, like I said, good football, but
isn't he about 35?
35 in January, yeah. So, look, I mean, we've just recruited Jack DeBellin in a similar age bracket, but obviously we've mentioned it, DeBellin with much less tread in the tyres because of the whole thing. But in this case, Gagai on a 1 year deal, if you had him as depth in the back line, you wouldn't be too upset about that, I guess. But there was also in chat, they were talking about it, that part of the reason why negotiations are stalled with Newcastle was on the basis that he wanted more money than what they were offering. And again, this is an age versus value debate when it comes to club versus player. And yeah, if Newcastle are trying to squeeze him, I don't blame them. Obviously, A, their cap situation is not fantastic, but B, I think that's probably just the right call. You can't be paying a 35-year-old centre premium money. So
yeah,
I do wonder how he shakes out for him, whether he lands at either Newcastle or Parramatta or elsewhere, whether it's NRL or Super League. His best bet for getting money would be Super League, I'd have to say. Let the geriatric Illawarra Dragons get him, yeah. He does feel like a Flanagan signing, doesn't he, Jamie? Like I said, I could cop him as a back end of your 30 depth signing in the back line. Like maybe he ends up starting because of winning out the battle during camp or preseason, but you don't sign him to be a frontline centre. But I would be surprised, but certainly something to monitor. The other one that came out was Adrian Prashenko. I'm not sure what panel he was on. It was one of the Saturday morning football shows, I believe. And again, this is tertiary information. This is not me having seen it or chat reporting it right now. But there was a comment on our instant reaction blog. Let me just go find it while I'm here. Was it Sebastian that put it up there? By the way, I didn't have a chance to shout it out, but thank you for everyone that came up and had a chat to us at the watch party, Craig. Michael is in chat here. We always catch up with him when we can, but there was also Mike Fleet. I think we had Richard Nohell came up there, and there's a few others along the way too. There was a lot of people that came up and said hello and had a chat to us while we were watching the game, and it was
Deborah.
Fantastic. Yeah, Deborah, yep, good shout. Plenty of people there, and there was certainly a push for us to have more watch parties, and we'll try and organise it in the future. But there are a few logistics to go behind something like that.
A little bit of financial investment that we put into it, and a bit to do with it.
Where is the comment here? Beadon, no. Muzz, no. It was Ivan. There we go. Ivan said, not sure if any of you heard Adrian Prashenko this morning alluded to Paris signing a quality second rower and having an absolute war chest of cap space next year. Also said the Eels were offered Sandon Smith, but Riles believes we have high ceiling players internally to play 5'8". The future looks great with Riles in charge. Obviously, that last part is just him making a comment on the macro situation of the Parramatta Eels, of which I agree. But assuming that Ivan's gotten, because sometimes the way they report this stuff can be a little bit nebulous and lead you to make interpretations of your own. But assuming that Ivan's on the money here, he's saying that the Eels have potentially signed a quality second rower, and now as a second rower an edge or a lock or either, I don't know, because that is also an important distinguishment for our potential recruitment. And look, the Sandon Smith thing tracks, because there was a rumour going around at one point that the Eels were looking at Sandon Smith, or Sandon Smith had been offered the Parramatta, and that certainly goes in line with that. But Jason Riles believing that the Eels have better players internally, that's something that we've heard, Craig, on our end. And I think that is certainly something that is shaping recruitment for the Parramatta Eels, is this next wave of kids coming through the SG Ball and the Jersey Flag, and how high the club has internal evaluations on these players and needing to create that bridge to 2027 roughly and beyond for these young guys to be ready. But yeah, potentially a quality back rower. I mean, I wouldn't be against it. We've been talking about lock forward being a great position to target. A lock forward, one of those hybrid lock forwards, I suppose. But I saw in chat people trying to puzzle out who it could be. I have no idea. I don't know if it's a contracted player. I don't know if it's an off-contracted player, if this information is correct. But it's going to be something fun to try and monitor. Oh, yeah, Phil,
Yep.
we did sign a young kid from Brisbane, yes, Jackson Coinis. Young front rower that got picked into the Australian schoolboys. Had a fantastic carnival, was a bench player at the start of the carnival, but strong form carried him through into the starting position and then eventually Australian schoolboys honours. Son of a former Parramatta Eel, who only played a handful of games, but they've got obviously very impressive. I think they signed him on a 3-year deal, Craig. That's going to be steps from Dev into top 30 at the back end of it, I believe. So very, very interesting pickup there. Certainly a great prospect to monitor next year, and where he plays, I'm not sure. I assume Jersey Flegg could technically be SG Ball eligible. Playing Australian schoolboys, he should be SG Ball eligible. So,
yeah. They may well play him first year in SG Ball rather than rush him
and then step him into Flegg.
Step up into Flegg when the SG Ball season's over. It's probably and look, in some of these instances as well, the players that are likely to finish the season and go into Jersey Flegg do end up spending a bit of time in the pre-season training with the Jersey Flegg team as well, and then in the run through to the SG Ball season, they drop back to the SG Ball itself. But they do get a run with with both teams during the pre-season if that's sort of the trajectory that they're on. Well, that's been my experience anyway of how they've run it the last couple of years there at Parramatta. So, John, I think that just about covers off this.
There was one more question. I'm not sure if we're at any sort of privy to explain this because I don't even know if we know. Was a rumour going around that Blair Mills has or is set to depart the club season's end? And if that's the case, if we do get any official talk about that, we will get it to you as soon as possible, guys. It would be unfortunate to find a new head of athletic conditioning, but there was a rumour going around that he's potentially going back to New Zealand rugby, so something to consider there, Craig.
Yeah, might be able to get a word with him through the week just to confirm that or deny it. So, interesting because he certainly changed things up in the pre-season with how the Eels prepared for this year, and whether one of the other fellas there is on his staff are prepared to be elevated, or whether they look for someone externally to come in and do that. I'm not sure. It's interesting because it was a different approach to this year. It worked, and he was integral to it. So, feels like 1 year would be just too short. It feels like it's just the start of the job.
I mean, if there's any substance to the rumor, there could be things that transcend just working for the Parramatta Eels in terms of familial situation and whatnot coming across from New Zealand. So if there is any truth to this rumor, because it did pop up a couple of weeks ago, obviously we'll get it to you when we can, but I wouldn't worry too much about it in the meantime. Eels certainly set up for long-term success now at the Centre of Excellence is on board, and whether it's under the guidance of Blair Mills or someone else, you got to think that they're going to be taking those or taking advantage of those facilities, Craig, to really step up next year and really become one of the premier teams in terms of fitness and conditioning.
John, look, people know that it's an interesting tightrope that we walk when it comes to breaking news with the Eels. We choose in probably close to 100% of occasions to not break news about what's happening at the club, primarily because it's, well, whether we're there at training or whatever the case may be, there's a level of confidence that is afforded to us, and we don't like to break confidences. when there's a lot of rumours going around, where we can, we'll try to guide you whether there's any substance or not to the rumours that are going around. But in this instance, this would be one where if we can get an answer for you, we'll get that, because if the rumours are floating around, what we then look to do is to guide you and say, look, I wouldn't pay attention to it, or look, there might be something to it. And that might be as far as that we go there.
Chris is in chat saying that the club is advertising for the role. So, I mean, that obviously adds a lot of credence to the rumour. But when we have a chance to make an official, report on an official statement from the club, obviously we'll do it. But if the club's advertising for the position,
club's advertising, they're advertising.
You don't have to read too hard into that to see that that's potentially something in the works there. But again, if Blair Mills does move on, which signs say they are, that he is, the club are in a position of strength. The COE is online. There are other staff there that are familiar with what Jason Riles wants. It gives them the ability to have familiarity with the current systems, and if they do want to go get someone else, then they're not going to have to work from a complete reset from building from nothing. So wouldn't worry too much about it. That is my big take out of it, mate, is I would not worry too much about it.
Well, look, personally, I just want to thank Blair because, again, we were fortunate. Blair gave us a lot of his time during the pre-season, explaining the philosophy behind a lot of things that were done from a conditioning perspective, and even from bringing a player back into playing through the rehab process. So we were very fortunate for him to share his insights with us, and really appreciate the time that he gave, and hopefully I can get a chance to convey that in person in the next few weeks. Okay, John. Well, I think that just about wraps things up. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in for this live. Thank you to people who end up watching this on replay, or not replay, but on delay, and whatever platform you're watching or listening to this on, give it a like and subscribe. We always appreciate that. Again, thank you to everyone who was there at the watch party on Friday night. It really was we just had a blast, an absolute blast, and we'll do it again as soon as we can. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta. Greg and the team, their support's been they're the OGs. And of course, Greg was there on Friday night. He's always there letting us know that he's ready to jump in and be involved with us whenever he can. And that's much appreciated. Of course, thank you to Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels, and our place to be for home games. We've got that Thursday night coming up.
Big game against Melbourne at Combank, So
I'm looking forward to our potential guest on Thursday. Just got to confirm the time, whether from a time perspective he can get there on time for us, because that's always the thing with these games on a Thursday night, when we've got legends of the game that are maybe travelling from work or travelling
times from Central Coast or South Coast.
or even from the South Coast or down in coastal suburbs where they might live. So there's almost a bit of a clue with that. So, but we'll wait and see. But even if we don't have a legend this week, John, we've just been having a great time in Stirlow's with our pre-game show. So we hope to see you there. And John, as I always say, go you mighty Eels.
Well said, mate. See you guys in the next episode.